In a forgotten corner of the world, nestled deep in the thick woods, there stood a village that no map acknowledged. Its name was Erskal, a place where even the wind seemed to carry an unsettling stillness, as if nature itself had forgotten how to breathe. The villagers were a secretive people, speaking only in hushed tones and avoiding the gaze of outsiders. When strangers did stumble upon Erskal, rare, uninvited travelers, they were always greeted with the same warning. Henry, a young journalist seeking stories of the forgotten, heard these words in passing one cold autumn evening. He'd traveled the length of the country chasing tales of mystery, but something about this village piqued his interest. So despite the villagers' warnings, he decided to stay the night. The innkeeper, an old woman with eyes like cracked glass, offered him a room in silence. She only spoke once, her voice barely more than a rasp. Henry, his curiosity overtaking caution, brushed it off as superstition. Night fell quickly over the village, the sky swallowed whole by dark clouds that blotted out the moon. Inside his room, Henry could hear the occasional creak of the floorboards and the distant rustle of wind through the trees. But as the clock struck midnight, that's when the whispers began. Soft at first, almost imperceptible, just a rustling noise in the distance. Then slowly they grew louder, like voices woven into the fabric of the wind. They carried no clear words, just a symphony of low murmurs, indistinct and eerie. Henry tried to ignore them, turning his attention to the walls, the peeling wallpaper, the old bed. But then, he felt something. A coldness creeping along his spine. His breath caught in his throat, and the whispers seemed to get closer, more insistent, as though they were circling the room, wrapping around him like a noose. His heart skipped a beat. The whisper wasn't just the wind. It was calling his name. In a panic, he leaped from the bed and rushed to the window, pulling back the heavy curtain. The village below was drowned in shadow. The street was empty, save for one figure standing in the center of the square. Its shape was humanoid, but it moved unnaturally, jerking and twitching like a marionette whose strings were tangled. Henry's pulse thundered in his ears as the figure slowly began to move toward the inn. As it drew nearer, he could see its face, if you could call it that. It was pale, almost translucent, with hollow eyes that seemed to bleed into the darkened night. Its mouth was an open gash, and as it approached, the whispers grew into a single unified voice. A knock came at the door. It wasn't loud, just a soft tap, but in the silence of that room, it echoed like thunder. Henry's breath caught in his chest. He couldn't move. He wanted to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but shadows. Then, from the darkness, a voice whispered again, directly into his ear. Suddenly, the whispers became unbearable. An overwhelming cacophony of voices, some low and others high-pitched, all speaking at once, all demanding his attention, their words slicing through his sanity like sharp knives. He stumbled backward, tripping over the bed, falling to the floor. The shadows in the corner of the room began to twitch. They were no longer just shadows. They were something else. Something living. They slithered toward him, tendrils of blackness that reached and crawled like the fingers of some unseen beast. The last thing Henry saw before the darkness swallowed him was the pale, twisted figure in the square, now standing at the foot of his bed. Then, the whispers fell silent. When the villagers went to check on Henry the next morning, they found the inn empty. No sign of him, not a single trace, except for a note left on the floor in his room. It read, "The villagers knew what had happened. Another soul had been claimed by the whispers beneath, and so the village continued its silent existence, waiting for the next traveler to arrive, because deep within the woods, beneath the cold earth, the whispers were always listening, always waiting, and they never forgot a name."